ever Bristol City podcast. The final score at Loftus Road, it finished QPR 0, City 0. So life under Roy continues, 7 points out of a possible 9 from his 3 games in charge. It had a typical end of season feel about it, more so than any game we've seen since middle of February, when effectively our season was over, middle of March, sorry. I'm joined today by Dave Tubby and Ant Banks. We'll do the usual. We're going to talk about less of the game because there's not a great deal to talk about. There's plenty of other stuff off the pitch. But let's focus on the game. You first, Dave. Were you awake at the final whistle?
Just about. I mean, it looked like a football match. It should have been a football match, but it wasn't a football match, really. It was two teams that were trying to do other things. And I heard a Diego Simeone quote in the week that teams that attack tend to defend less well, and teams that look to defend tend to attack less well. And that's kind of what we saw. There's no doubt that Roy's come in. The walls are harder to breach. We are more stabilised. But what are we really learning? We're learning that Jason Knight is setting the standard about what it takes to be a fullback. I'm becoming more and more convinced that Max Bird, you build a side around him, you pump him with confidence and you say, go play. And you just build everything around that. He shows it with his passes, he shows it with everything. He needs to be a centerpiece and he needs to believe in that. But what we saw yesterday, that was very much a Roy Hodgson side, and there's nothing wrong with that. But over the course of the season, I don't think we have a fan base that would accept that if results have a downturn. They would lose their mind because it's just not what people want to see. I got 60 minutes in yesterday. I was bored. And I'm not saying the end of Struber's part was any fun because it wasn't good. But when you stabilize the ship, there comes at a price. And that price is short-termism. You can say 7 points from 3 games. But what does it actually mean if you overplay Max Bird and he gets an injury and misses pre-season? It doesn't mean a single thing. It might feel good. My mic's apparently low, so I'll try and change it. But yeah, for me, yesterday was a missed opportunity in short-termism.
All right. And short-termism, I said to Dave in a text or WhatsApp, and I faced his ear because I said it was quite easy on the eye watching this football. It ain't as boring as Manning ball was ever. And we should have had the game wrapped up in the first half, but in the second half it was mainly QPR, but Vitek was a spectator. What were your thoughts on the final whistle, Ant?
Again, there's a bit of learning, absolutely nothing much from the game whatsoever. And I suppose my overarching thought is how much the aims of Roy Hodgson in this spell align with the aims of what we need as a football club moving forward. That isn't knocking the job that Roy Hodgson's done at all. We needed him to come in, he stabilised the ship, 7 points in 9 games, great. But nobody's doing cartwheels over a point at Loftus Road and a dead rubber at the end of the season. When we're looking at players on that pitch and we're bringing on George Urphy, who's not going to kick a ball for us post this season. We're bringing on Delano Bergzorg, who tries to kick a ball but misses it on frequent occasions. So we're looking at people who aren't going to be here when I think there's an opportunity to give those minutes to other people potentially. You've got Seb Naylor sat on the bench again for the 3rd game in a row, not getting on whatsoever. You could have swapped Pring out and given Seb Naylor half an hour and you learn a little bit from him. Ronell Young dropped off the bench, having been on the bench against Sheffield United. You could have retained him, brought him on instead of your Urphy or your Bergzorg, and just look to try and say, right, what's the level of these guys? This isn't a slating of Roy Hodgson. I don't blame Roy Hodgson at all whatsoever. He can come in to focus on the next 7 games, not to shape the future of the club. But we will gain far more from half an hour of Seb Naylor in each of the next 4 matches. We'll gain more from giving Ronell Young a bit of a run. Even if you push it to Azundu, you'll gain more from learning about these players and saying, right, are they at the level? Can they be part of the squad moving forward? Whereas for Roy's aim at the moment, and again, I am not knocking this whatsoever, he's coming in to have a bit of a swan song. He's doing a really good job of doing it, but how good does it look at the end of it to put a nice little full stop, exclamation mark on his career? He finished with a great 7-game unbeaten run at the end of it, and he walks off in the sunset of everybody's thanks. But I would rather we lost a couple of games and we took a bit more risks. It was fairly risk-free yesterday.
Yeah, Dave, I think... Sorry, Dave, I was coming to you.
Sorry.
Sorry, Dave, I was coming to you anyway. Roy, I totally agree with Anne that Roy, it's his swan song. Yeah, he's undefeated in 3. The next 2 are very, very difficult. I would say it's highly likely that we will lose 2 of the last 4, but you never. I mean, Southampton lost at home. Hull, Birmingham are a bit in and out at the moment. But is he putting maybe getting that end of career record intact rather than helping the club in terms of next season? If we'd have been 3-0 up at halftime, might he have made those changes? But is it self-preservation, Dave?
I don't think it's necessarily that he's thinking, "Oh, I have to finish with a positive record," but I think it's a misalignment of kind of what they want, and in addition to that, it's him doing what he knows. At this point in the season, there's no basis for going 70 minutes. There's no basis for bringing Horvath on that late and taking Max Bird that long for his 3rd game in 8 days when he's not that long back from injury. It is huge risk stuff. And it looks good on paper. You know, you're undefeated in 3, you've got 7 points. It really does look good. But the problem is that it's not making summer any cheaper. Because right now, if we look at the squad, and it's what Ant said, do we need 1 left back for the summer? Are we okay? Are we okay in that position? What can he bring to the table? We have no idea. We really don't know what he can or can't do. And that's one position that we need to cover. And Zaidu, as you said, how close is he to the side? We really don't know. And when you're making subs in the 70th, 75th, or even later, 83rd minute, at this stage of the season, it's fool's gold. You've got to make those changes. And when you bring on Bergzorg, it is dead time. It is literally dead minutes that serves no purpose this season and serves no purpose next season. And you really, at this point in the season, have to look beyond the results. It's about who's stepping up and who's making a claim going into next season.
Yeah. I mean, I think your point there, and I'm sure Anne will agree when I pose the same question to him, Bergzorg is right up there amongst the worst loan signings this club has ever made. Even Luke Donny, that sets a pretty high bar for being crap. But I think he's even surpassed Luke Donny. And wearing bloody gloves in the first week of April, FFS, what's all that about? The Lamborghini wage-stealing moron. And I doubt if you disagree with me on that.
But again, as I said to Dave the other week, I think you should probably get off the fence at the moment with this one. I'll take your Luis Dioni and I will raise you Dear Mabude as well. It's fair to say we've had some loan signing shockers, and Bergzorg, I think it was Bristol City FM on Twitter, had put the Mount Rushmore of forward signing done by this recruitment team, which included Dioni, Miulu, Armstrong and Bergzorg.
Yes, I saw that.
So
that was funny.
If you look at that, I mean, clearly we do not know how to recruit a striker for love nor money. Now, Bergzorg, again, as I've said before, the guy blew us out twice. He didn't want to be here from the start. You know, lucky enough, Middlesbrough's wage, we're just the guys that are contributing to that at the moment. If we even think for 1 minute about signing him during the summer, it is insane. But the broader insane piece about this at the moment is Bergzorg's been brought on in each of the last 2 games. And to be honest, I think he actually did okay in the game against Sheffield United. I thought he worked a bit harder. He was a little bit more of a threat. Yesterday, he was anonymous. But the most damning thing of all is I'm looking at the TV coverage. Sinclair Armstrong doesn't even get off his backside off the bench to warm up. He is that far away now, and Roy's made the absolute correct judgment on him based on that Charlton game, that a striker who potentially could be here next season, who none of us want to be here next season, let's be frank about that, who also has a point to prove against his former club.
His old club, old club.
Cannot get on the pitch against someone who doesn't want to be here and really can't be asked to be here at all. The playing of Bergzorg shows how bad Sinclair Armstrong is and how someone who has coached Ronaldo, Zamorano, Kane, lots of world-class strikers, he's seen Sinclair Armstrong, and my God, he's 78 years old. It's probably enough to give him a heart attack before he even starts. You know, there is no way Sinclair Armstrong is getting anywhere near this side in future, and Delano Bergzorg proves that point. So however bad he is, imagine how bad Roy Hodgson thinks Armstrong is, having seen him at close quarters.
But didn't we have Sam Bell on the bench as well? So, you know,
Well,
I mean, he's a player. Look, if Sam Bell gets a new contract, then that's no disrespect, Sam, but that's not progression. But Sam Bell has got, of the three, he is, if you said, who do you want to keep? Bergzorg, Armstrong, or Bell? Yeah. If you had to give one of those a contract next season, it would be Bell. Would you agree with that, Dave? Bell, why didn't he get some minutes?
To
On
be
that
honest
small
with you,
pitch at QPR, you know what it's like at QPR. You know, you charge around a bit, he might get something.
Sam Bell's a bit of a mystery to me because he comes in back in January, gets Player of the Month. That's two managers. Struber clearly didn't fancy him. You're looking at Hodgson and he's not really fancying him. So what would I do in this situation instead of Bergzorg? I mean, Twine was playing incredibly high yesterday. Why not put him as a false nine with Horvat in behind? Why not try to see if something can be effective at this point in the season and how it looks? Because you have nothing to lose. Hodgson already has nothing to lose. Unfortunately, that's just not in his makeup. He's come in and done exactly what he told you in that first press conference he was going to do. I'm coming in to coach. Do we take that at face value or not? Well, he's showing us. And for us to get frustrated, I think that we are valid in our frustrations that who's not playing. But am I surprised that he's taking this route? No. I expect him to do the same in the next few games. And maybe in the last game, maybe he'll add some players. But before I keep going on about it, I really feel like it's an opportunity missed.
I disagree that. I mean, I think he's instilled something because he's still got. It's not like he's brought in an assistant as well, but he's, to use that oft-used phrase, time on the grass. By his own admission, he's had limited time because if you heard him after Sheffield United, yeah, they had Tuesday off. He wasn't around on Wednesday, so he said in the post-match interview, he had 1 day's training. Proper. He called it proper training. 90 minutes. I mean, Christ, they're not exactly working these blokes into the ground. So he's got a full week coming up now. And whatever he has done, it's made a difference because we
can't argue with that. He's simplifying the game. You know, he's making it. Like yesterday was a pretty 4-4-2, like I said, with Twine quite advanced and Bird on that left-hand side with a bit more freedom. But when he's installing that something, if you look at the side, what's the purpose? Because Knight's not going to be right back next season. Borges isn't going to be here. We know that for sure. Sykes doesn't look like he's going to be here. Vitek definitely isn't going to be here. There were a lot of moving pieces that are going to benefit of somebody else. It's not going to be for us. You're looking at 7 to 9 additional purchases in the summer, minimum. So this thing that he's installing, we should be looking at, right, who can make up the squad? Because when you speak about that, think about the season as a whole. What have we learned in this Roy period that we didn't already know? What truly have we learned? We've learned that Knight can play right back. We've very, very good right back, that Tanner is not good enough for that level. But the rest of the players, we've learned that Sykes' best position is on the right, more advanced. We kind of knew that already. We've learned that Bird is an exceptional footballer. We knew that already. We've learned actually that Borges can actually play in a back four in the middle. I was very much wrong there. But he won't be here next season. So we haven't learned anything that sets us into next season. We're literally just papering over cracks.
And you're going to agree with that, aren't you?
Yeah, and just to backtrack on the Sam Bell point, because I think it's important. But I keep seeing comments like, give him a chance up front in his favoured position. Give him a chance up front in his favoured position. Now, Sam Bell is 24 years old in 6 weeks' time. Okay? He is not a youngster anymore. This isn't a kid coming through the academy. We don't even get training compensation if he moves on. He's played 100 games of football for Bristol City. Now, I have not seen anything in him that says, actually, he can be a central striker at championship level. And that Player of the Month, that wasn't about quality, that was about effort. He ran himself into the ground. You look at it, there wasn't any great quality there. He just came back running. Maybe thought he'd never play at Ashton Gate again. He was out to Wickham permanently. Just kept running and running. Now, if we start next season, and we'll all agree that we need at least one, possibly two strikers. If we start next season and whoever his head coach says, I'm not going to buy a striker, I'm going to give Sam Bell his opportunity up front because that's what you've been asking for. This place, OTIB, the fan base will be an absolute meltdown because it just shouldn't happen. So Sam Bell will be, at best, if you give him a new contract, third, fourth choice striker next season. He's going to be 25 at the end of that season, not having played a season up front in his favoured position. Yeah. We are mental if we offer him a contract. And equally, he is absolutely insane if he accepts a contract, because if he genuinely believes that he's a central striker and he can do it, get your bags packed, go and do it somewhere else. Prove us all wrong, because if contract here, playing up front through the middle, your career will stagnate and you will play at being a footballer rather than being an actual footballer. He needs to move on for his own good. So we should not be having conversation about Sam Bell. And the worst thing we could do is give him minutes in these next 4 games, and then on the basis of an anecdote, if he plays well, say, actually give him a deal. But to Dave's point, I totally agree. We're learning nothing. We're learning nothing. I keep seeing comments that Roy's creating a base for next season. That base only exists if those players are here. So there is no base being created from this.
Well, exactly.
Base by developing.
Dave, Michael Thresher's put up on the text feed here, the second part of his comment there. I'll read the whole comment. You're expecting too much. He's here for 4 games to manage the team, but he's here for 7. It's a Bristol City advert for the whole world to look at the club. And therefore, if he's getting results rather than taking chances, and look, Scudamore is pulling the strings, of that there is no doubt. Do you think that's part of the rationale subliminally, Dave, that Roy has put the club in the public eye for potential suitors?
Do I think... Do you want a suitor to come along that goes, oh, look, there's Roy Hodgson, his manager. That's a club we could buy. Not particularly. That wouldn't be the kind of owner that you want. I do take the point, though, and actually Michael Thresher saying that we're expecting too much. There's an element of that I can understand, because we're talking about all the players. To my mind, it's not about just putting them all in. It's about maybe putting some of them in, taking a look, figuring it out each way. And what Hodgson is doing, it is a choice. And some people, I completely understand, are saying that it's about this season, it's about steadying the ship, it's about showing what could be done. And there is a conversation to be had about, was Struber too ideological in not going to the simplified 4 and trying to make it too complicated? And that's an interesting football discussion, but that's looking backwards. If we want to look forwards as a football club, how are we going to progress from here? Because Roy's going to leave in the summer. He's gone. And then the new guy comes in, and this base, what does it mean? It doesn't mean anything right now, because the ship was stopped from sinking against Charlton. After that, it's about learning. And you have to look beyond I am looking beyond results. When I saw the subs bench in the previous game against Sheffield United, I was reasonably pleased, because I thought, okay, some guys are going to get minutes. When I saw yesterday, it was, what's the point? We're bringing back McCory and Tanner that may or may not be fit, and if they do get minutes, they're at risk. We don't want anything like that. Unless you are 100% fit, stay away from the side. This should be a period of opportunity.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at league position, the optics, if you look at the table at the moment, there's a little clutch of clubs. Do you think it's a case of the board saying, look, if we want to finish as high in the table as we can, and if we experiment, it's feasible even now that we could end up, he's got 7 points out of 9, which is more than anybody expected. But we were thinking 2 weeks ago, before Roy took his first game, we were thinking, we could end up as low as 18th, 19th would be really bad. Whereas looking at it now, the best we can probably get to is 9th. 8th is too far. Getting in line with last season's points total, that's too big an ask now because we didn't win yesterday. But do you think prime objective, let's ignore Roy wanting to go out with a good run, but do you think it is we've got to finish as high up the table as we can, and that's the number one objective? So, because everybody's jockeying and there's not a great deal of movement, we could go into the last game of the season maybe, and it's the difference between finishing 9th or 13th, because that's how close it is in the middle.
It is. I mean, I think that you say the board. there isn't a board necessarily from a footballing sense to speak of. You need the sporting director to give that kind of guidance as to where we want to finish on there. We hear a lot about we need to finish as high as we possibly can because it will put us in a good light for next season and so on and so forth. I don't doubt that John, Steve, Charlie, Rich Scudamore, whoever will want to finish as high as possible because it vindicates the decision to get rid of Struve. Because it will say, look, we've turned it around. You know what? We finished 10th. You rightly say about the spread of teams, though. There's going to be a clutch of teams between 9th and 15th where there's probably going to be about a 4-point split. Yeah. It's going to be irrelevant where you finish amongst those teams. And actually, in terms of media profile for buying a club, it's going to be irrelevant. In terms of attracting players, it's going to be irrelevant because the players are going to be thinking, right, who is coming in as head coach? Who is coming in as sporting director? How much money are these people going to spend? And are they bringing in quality in our positions? Because I tell you what, if we finish 10th in the league, great. And then Steve Landon says, what football makes football can spend. And you know what? We're going to appoint Michael Appleton as head coach, to throw a name out of the past. Yeah. And we're going to appoint some no-mark as sporting director. And by the way, your budget is Sinclair Armstrong. It's going to be irrelevant. No player's going to want to come here. No. It all rolls back to getting the sporting director, getting the head coach, getting the budget coming in. Because where we finish now, it will not make a lick of difference to investors. It won't make a lick of difference to head coach. It won't make a lick of difference to players. It's about the long term over that short termism. And what you're saying over the microns, what we're saying of, is Roy concentrating on the next 7 games? You're saying the board concentrating on the next 7 games. Well, which is completely the wrong thing to do. Get the foundation.
No, but it's all about self-preservation on their part. Dave, would you look at the next 4 games coming up? I mean, they're the dead rubber is Stoke the last day of the season, but Norwich, I know they lost East Anglian Derby yesterday. That's going to be difficult. Southampton, that's going to be difficult. And Birmingham, their last home game of the season. If Chris Davis has still got a job, whatever his name is, the manager, I'll be very surprised. But would you sooner see us lose the next 4 games or just win one of the next 4, but we've blooded Naylor, Young, Azunu, whatever the guy's name is? You'd be happy seeing the youngsters come on, even if it costs us results?
I don't care about results. I really don't. It's not important to me. It's not about just chucking them all in one go. You know, you've got to put them around professionals to give them a chance to succeed. Yeah. There was a thing at the beginning of the season with Armstrong and Fally where they're both playing at the same time. They were guaranteed to fail. Armstrong's been put in positions where he can succeed and he hasn't. It's a different conversation. If you put Naylor in, it doesn't make sense to put him in on the left-hand side with other youth players around him. You've got to put them in positions, and that comes down to who starts. It comes down to the subs. I struggle with this period of the season because there's nothing on the results. There might be for the managers, and I get that argument that they're focused on one game at a side. But I want to see good football. I want to see interesting football. What did we see yesterday? We saw 2 teams playing a mid-block that weren't taking risks, and they were playing a game of trap press football. Neither one wanted to commit, but what both wanted to do was win it high up as possible. The result is that you don't really get too many chances. Both teams are kind of too good to fall for that, and nothing happens. The intensity wasn't there. I want to see us having a go to try and win football matches, but if we don't win, no problem. Blood the youth and come out with it feeling like, right, we know people aren't good enough. Because I've seen comments from people here, they're not good enough because they're not playing. You might be right. You might well be right. But how often is it that a player is ready on day 1? Very rarely. That's the whole point of the crowd. You put a youth player in, they make a mistake, the crowd supports them, they grow into the position, and after a couple of games, you know, are they sinking? Or are they swimming? If you don't do it, you never learn and you never get this kind of opportunity earlier in the season.
Yeah, I'm just looking at one of the text comments there that somebody's put, I didn't have faith in Stuber spelt wrong and just need an English manga spelt that wrong. And then somebody said further up, I think you should learn English first. That's very
well.
Good.
If it makes you feel better, I was going to say swink or sim, but I didn't get it right.
This is a first. We've had 24 minutes coming up. I'm going to pause for an advert now. Here we go. Look, I have to edit these in and find when we all take a gap for breath. So 3, 2, 1, silence. And we go again. Let's get into the action. This has to be a forever Bristol City podcast record that we've had 25 minutes and we haven't talked about a game. And I mean, the first half, I've got 4 incidents there. We did force a clutch of corners, one after the other. And there were, this was up to the 30th minute, half-hearted attempts on goal, I would say. There were chances that if everybody was playing... I watched the Roy Keane film last night, Saipan, with Steve Coogan, all about his contretemps with Mick McCarthy. But if he played with that intensity, and you just felt that with a little bit more oomph, we might have converted at least one of those chances. Is that how you saw it, Anne?
Before I came on, I'm just because I'm a bit of a sadomasochist, I rewatched the highlights from yesterday on Sky, and Sky showed in all their highlights 1 chance for QPR and the rest of them for us. And that probably suggests where the balance of clear-cut real chances were. The problem was the game was played at 50% pace. I was sat with Liam, my son. He was saying that it was horseshoe and it reminded him of Manning. I had to put him to bed because he would have nightmares about the prospects of that returning. And it was just far, far too slow as we went through it. There were moments of quality. I mean, you talk about those corners. I thought it was quite interesting. We did 4 different corners and they were all short. And 3 of them were variations. Then the 4th one, we got it wrong. We got the offside, but we got in it. My bigger problem was I thought their keeper was a bit of a bomb scare. And I thought if you pressed him, you would probably get some joy. Now, a couple of things. We got an incident there where he came out to make a header. We're about 10 yards outside of his goal.
Yeah.
And... you know, I've got no problem with the keeper doing that, but it was like he let it dink off his head, just loop upwards, and it ended at Sykes' feet. Sykes couldn't finish it, and that was a prelude to what happened in the second half, where he came out and it got spilled to Morsey higher up. But he was spilling the ball a fair bit, and the commentary team were making a few excuses for him. There was one shot where I think Reece had it and he spilt it, and only a small deflection, you should still gather it, and Bird was in on top of it. We were slightly slower, but we were creating the better chances, you know. And at the break, if you'd have said we were 1 up, 1.5, 2 goals up, I was going to say 1.5, can't get 1.5 goals, that would be silly. 1 up, 2 up, then you probably could have made a case for that, because QPR weren't really in it.
Nothing. No.
And we controlled a lot of the game. It wasn't easy on the eye. It wasn't pleasant, but we did control a lot of that game. But that extra 10% probably gets you there.
That's where, as you said, it wasn't easy on the eye. But Dave, was looking at that game and I thought, you know, if we had gone in 2-0, that would have been fair. And it was just composed, measured football, no risks. Somebody said, I read somewhere, that Hodgson's managing like he used to manage England. You know, it's solid, it's unspectacular. And I was disappointed we weren't in front. But QPR, I mean, I've been up there loads of times, and they always put you under a lot of pressure. But they were docile, and I felt if we'd have upped the ante a bit, we could have definitely gone in front. But 2-0 based on the chances, because I had nothing on QPR in the first half at all, we'd have been happy.
I mean, the main positives for being that first half, there was one move just before half time with Knight had gone a bit more advanced, and he'd taken one of the defenders, and it allowed Sykes to make a run. And from that run with the reach chance, what you learn is that if you find yourself in a pocket of space, Ayla has the quality to find you with a sharp pass, and it created an opportunity. It was the same with Max Bird. He was getting in pockets, he was drifting in, and what we learned yesterday is he will cause an element of chaos drifting in. He is comfortable on both feet. There's a lot that Max Bird you can do, and with a new manager, with time, you can see ingredients how we're going to break teams open. I disagree with you when you say 2-0. I don't necessarily think that we should have been ahead. I can think of a praying opportunity, and it was like more of a half chance. And the Reece one, I didn't really expect him to score because the keeper was so on him. Were we the better of the two? Yes, sure. But I felt like QPR were offering nothing and we were offering a little bit more. But the way it was, the ground was so quiet, you could almost hear the training, the shouts from the coaches. They were instructing the QPR players, keep it tight, keep it inside, let them go wide. They were practicing. They weren't even playing it full speed. You know, the intensity wasn't there from them, but it was positive in the way that we were looking to break open. But what will happen next season? We will have to be a bit more adventurous to break sides open. And when you are a bit more adventurous, there's a price to pay at the back. Then we will find out what we're all about.
Yeah, and into the second half, and the commentators were saying QPR got back into the game, but they didn't, you know. And we, if you like, we done the best we could in the first half. Early in the second half, Twine had a shot saved and what have you, but they were getting into the game. But it was powder puff from them, wasn't it? You know, I mean, if I was a home supporter, it was weak. And they were undefeated. That's they got into that with, I think, 3 wins out of the last 4.
I mean, they changed both their strikers on midway through the second half. And now the question there is, did they change both their strikers because both their strikers weren't very good? Or did they change their strikers because their strikers weren't getting the service? And I think it's a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. The interesting thing there is one of their strikers was Richard Kone, who I think they signed for relatively big money in the summer. And people were saying, why weren't we in for Richard Kone? And it's a similar thing to Adam Eder at Swansea, who was signed for big money by them. It's so difficult to get it right in terms of the striking signings. It's not a case of going out and signing, for example, Don Ballard from Orient and chucking them 6 million, because you don't know if he's going to make it. And that's back to your Sam Bell scoring goals for Wickham at the level below. There is such a difference there. Kone looked absolutely toothless, and Ailey, who I thought was very, very good yesterday and is showing a bit of attitude now, which is great. I thought he marked him exceptionally well, did a really, really good job on him. But the weird thing about QPR is they seem to keep overhitting everything. I know it's a relatively small pitch at Loftus Road, but if you play there every week, you should be used to it. Number of crosses they overhit first half. They were putting crosses out for throws, crosses out behind the goal. And they offered practically nothing. And just when I say 2-0 up, I mean that actually with a little bit more adventure, you could be 2-0 up. And actually, the chance we probably haven't discussed, we talked for a moment about the one in the first half of that through ball from Ayler, which is great because it shows the progression. It's the bit you're missing post-Viner. I don't agree with the comment that Sykes could have taken it quicker because he was kind of like received it in a slightly awkward position. I think his body shape could have been better getting the ball to get the shot off. But then you had the one that Twine slightly miskicked, where Bird put him through, and that flick from Bird as he put him through was absolutely sumptuous. It was like first time outside of the boot, and the curve, it was actually right into Twine's path, and that's what Max Bird is going to give you moving forwards. But QPR offered nothing, 1, because we played them well, but 2, because I just didn't really see anything in them as a side. But your point about Dave's point about need to be more adventurous. I was watching Match of the Day earlier with Bournemouth, and Bournemouth were going 3-on-3 with Arsenal at the back in order to press higher up and win the ball. And they pressed higher up and won the ball. It led to them winning the game. And that's what we mean about being a little bit more adventurous. Roy's made it difficult to beat. That's great, but we're going to need more than that next season.
Yeah. Dave, I was just looking at Kone, and I mean, I don't think he went for 6 million, but I think he probably went for 4. And if you look at his track record, I mean, he was playing non-league in 23-24 season for Athletic Newham. But if you look at Wickham, he played 61 games for them, 21 goals. So it's a 1 in 3. And this season, he's played 31 games and scored 7. Yeah, and let's say he costs them 4.5 million. It just shows how how chancy the transfer market is, because we've got better value out of Reece, despite us saying he's a bit of a lazy so-and-so. He's got into double figures. He didn't cost us that. He's just costing us the wages. I mean, it just shows when whatever level you're at. I mean, even look at Liverpool with their £300 million spend. You know, I know they won yesterday, but whatever level you're at, it's a lottery how players are going to be successful, isn't it?
I wouldn't say it's a lottery, but there are no guarantees. You know, the hardest thing to do in this sport is to put the ball in the back of the net. It's the reason why, no matter what level you play at, even if it's Sunday League, faced with being one-on-one with the keeper, your heart basically falls to pieces. You know, it's a very difficult art in this sport, and there's a reason why it costs the big bucks. The issue with our side was never Reece. Reece is not the problem. Reece is a perfectly adequate signing. It's what comes in behind him. And they've fallen so far short in that aspect because they convinced themselves that they could train somebody to score goals. And that's actually very, very difficult to do. I would rather start with someone that can score goals and train some of the other aspects. Because when you look at someone like Armstrong, and you've asked me a question, so I'll turn it into him, he doesn't play like someone that really understands football. He's not proactive, he's reactive, and that's the issue. Someone like Kone, he did it in the level below. Sometimes you have to take an element of risk and say, you know what, I'm going to pick up that guy. At least QPR can say, look, he's got a lot of goals in the level below, we took a chance on him. We can't actually say that with Armstrong. We can say, we thought that we were the club that was taking a punt. We thought we were the ones that could convert him. We were
Yeah.
wrong. And that's the aspect of it. And sometimes with strikers, what do you need to do? You actually need to create a few chances. How many chances did we really create yesterday where you can
Yeah.
say we should have took those?
And,
Not
and, look,
many.
and look at Vipotnik at Swansea. He got about half a dozen goals last season. He's the league's top scorer. And a name that probably, well, no, he was popular when he was here. It ended a bit badly, but bring him home. Tommy Conway. Here's a sort of scenario for you. Yeah. Borough. If Borough go up, it's looking less likely now than it was. But if Borough go up, and we'll have sent Borges and Bergzor back there, they've probably, using the instalment method, they've probably paid in cash terms half of Tommy's fee. I think he left because of some rancor over his contract, and a certain person is no longer involved there. But if we went out and brought Tommy Conway back for what we paid, what we got for him, or let's say we signed Tommy Conway for 4 million, how would you feel about that, Ant?
I'd be happy. I can see there's a lot of comments in here about no, 6 non-penalty goals, doesn't score enough goals. Tommy Conway, if you're signing him as your absolute main striker, probably no, I agree on that. Tommy Conway, in terms of what he brings to an overall unit going forward, is far, far better than people realise. And there's a reason why his first name on the team sheet for the Middlesbrough manager quite often. And if you watched him at Ashton Gate earlier this season, his movement, he created about 3 or 4 absolute golden opportunities for Middlesbrough players that day. Just from his movement, peeling off, taking defenders out of the game and playing the ball through. You know, we have a bit of a down on him in some cases because he left us. You know, he left us and, you know, I don't care about Conway, etc. I don't care about Conway myself. I care about Bristol City doing well. And Tommy Conway is, at this level, a very, very good front player. If you paired Conway with Reece, for example, you would give Reece so much more space because right now Reece takes the whole workload. And I thought he did quite well yesterday. I thought he battled well and held the ball up quite well. You put Conway up there to drag defenders out of the way, move it around. I think Tommy Conway would be an asset to most sides at this level. We're poo-pooing a guy in the comments a lot who is playing for a top 6 side and is the first name on the team sheet. Yeah. This isn't Bergzor who's playing for a top 6 side and they were chucking him on as and when. This isn't Borges who wasn't getting the side at Middlesbrough. This is someone in a top 6 side who is rated by the manager and is rated by the fans despite a less than optimum goal return. He's got goal scoring in him though.
Dave, Dave, just picking up Katie, one of our contributors, she says Conway does no more for me than Reece. We need a proven goal scorer, and that's not Conway. But Katie, the thing is, you know, if we'd have signed Vipotnik this time last year, we'd have said, well, he's not a proven goal scorer. It just backs up my point that you just don't know. Dave, what do you think of the Conway?
I think there's 2 ways of looking at the Conway argument. First of all, there's a few bridges in the club that would have to be rebuilt for him to even want to come back from the way he was treated here and somehow made out to be the bad guy. He wasn't the bad guy. There were other people that were the bad guys and he's just the fool guy, essentially. So if you did want him back in the building, there are bridges that need to be rebuilt. Secondly, Mr. 9,800 in the database, and the answer is Tommy Conway. It's just easy for them. It's always the same. It wouldn't surprise me if they went that route because that's what they know. The optics would be terrible because it's telling you nothing's really changed. Go out and find the striker for once. Tommy Conway is the easy route. If you tell me that there's nothing else available that's better than Tommy Conway, okay, it wouldn't bother me if he comes back in. But my instinctive feeling is, yet again, the recruitment team wouldn't actually be going out and finding somebody. They would just go for the name they already know. They've got 9,800 numbers. Be better than that.
Yeah, no, it's difficult. All right, look, we've done the game. I thought the referee was reasonable yesterday. QPR fans thought otherwise, reading some of the comments that I've
Can I say, I
seen.
thought he was horrible, the referee.
Yeah.
I thought it was horrible yesterday. He wanted to be the centerpiece of a game when there's
Yeah, he did.
so
The
little writing
commentators
on it.
did say let the game flow a little bit, but there we go. Let's look at well, what can we look at next? People say it's going to be a difficult one. You sent me a very good WhatsApp things to talk about. And let's pick up on some of them. Tanner, good enough. He's a player who's under contract. Next season he'll be over his injury problems. Is he a starter or is he on the bench for you?
Who are you asking?
I'll ask you. I'll ask you first, Dan. Go on, Tanner. Let's look at him.
Tanner, I think, again, this is a multiple things could be true aspect, and that is that he has been a very good signing for the money we paid for him. There is no question about that. He's given decent service and he's played well within a limitation that he's got. Do I want George Tanner starting for us? No, he's not good enough. We talked earlier about Jason Knight having shown how to play right back. Jason Knight's actually played right back better than McCrory as well.
Yeah.
So for me, Tanner, I don't actually have an issue as him being a cover defender with the intent you only play him if everybody else is not available, because you can't have 25 players who are all absolute championship top 6 level. No. There will be some of them who are lower level. Tanner is lower level championship, probably at the bottom quarter of it, higher level League One. There's a place for a player like that in a squad like ours. We're not going to turn around and shape our squad into a top 6 squad with every player being top 6 immediately. No, Do I shed any tears if he leaves? No. Do I want him starting? No. Do I understand him? Are there more important players to move on than him? There probably are. Yeah.
Dave, I'm going to harp on about this Knight at right back thing. It applies to Tanner as well, because Knight, he's already in the building. We know what he's capable of. He's made that position look what we need to set as a standard, and he can still slot into midfield. He played quite a few games at right back. So if you've got Tanner's in the building because he's under contract, because you're not going to move him on, you've got Tanner and Knight at your right back. Say bye-bye Ross McCrory, Sykes, and Ross McCrory, Sykes. Yeah, those two. They can have Tanner and Knight as your two at right back if we're playing a 4. What do you think?
I would say no to that. I have no issue with Jason Knight playing as a right back. He's shown these 2 games. He's shown the standard. We haven't really seen what him as a right back looks like when you're asking him to be a full 2-way player. Making overlap runs, getting back in position, linking up the play. What he has done is shown the minimum standard in defending and playing out from the back. He's made a couple of overlaps against Sheffield United. Yes, that wasn't part of the game because that's what he was asked to do. But would I want to see him as a right back? No, because I think he offers more in centre midfield. If you can move Tanner on, you do it, and you bring in 2 right backs. And he's right, you can't have 2 championship full-on level promotion chasing right backs, but you need one of them to be. Tanner's not even, to my mind, Tanner's not even squad level. There is a reason why in the last few games we've looked better since he got injured. It's come across as a blessing in disguise because it's shown us this is what happens. This is what it looks like when you have a competent right back. This is how it's supposed to look. And that includes right centre back, right back. Tanner is just not the level. He looks okay in many, many areas. Now you're seeing how it's supposed to look, and it's not a coincidence. So for me, you move him on if you can.
All right. If we look in the centre, be that playing with, let's assume we're going to go 4, right? And we'll talk about the sporting director in a minute. But when you look at Ealer, Knight Labelle signed his contract, Atkinson, McNally, and Dickey. You don't need to move anybody on there. You've got as much coverage as you need, perhaps even more so. Maybe one of those could go because Tanner can slot in there. Pring at a push can slot in there. So your central defence, be it 3 or 2, are solid. Pring, left back. Pring, he's under contract. Pring playing well. Naylor is a backup.
No. We don't know that yet. That's the problem. Naylor, we don't know.
All right, well then, let's assume. I'm just trying to be assumed so we can focus where we buy. Yeah. Now,
as of today, we need to buy a left back. Unless we know more about Naylor, we need to go into next season because we know Pring will get injured. And if you are truly focused on promotion, you cannot have a scenario where you're 5 games into the season. Well, Naylor's got to play the next 10 because Pring's out, and we don't know if he's good enough.
So you're talking about having 3 players to cover one position there.
That's why you play him now. That's why.
Yeah. Okay, but he might. I was just assuming that happened. So if we look at that, the back looks reasonably intact. In the middle, I hear what you say, Dave, about and another reason for playing Knight at right back, I think a Randall-Knight combo in the middle doesn't work. Randall played some of his best football when Knight wasn't there. I said it numerous times on the podcast that Randall was more Knight than Knight. But Randall's going to be there in the middle, right? Bird's going to be there in the middle. Yeah. You need another midfield player, quality midfield player, maybe somebody who's a bit taller. What do you say, Anne, in terms of what we need in the middle?
I think just backtracking on the defensive point there, you've named 5 players at the centre half. One of them, McNally, we have no idea if he's ever going to play football again. Okay? And I'm working on the basis that if a guy has been missing for 15 months, 16 months, either he's very unlikely to play again, or if he does, he's not going to be at the level needed potentially for at least some time. So I think you have to almost rule McNally out of your planning unless he has a Lazarus type recovery. With Knight Labelle, just tangentially, I don't have a problem with Jamie Knight Labelle typically as a player. I think he's developed okay. My question is who's making the decision to give these contracts with no sporting director in the building? That is, to me, a little bit of, right, who's really pulling the strings here? Because Roy Hodgson's not doing it. Is it a legacy thing? Is it a case of we agreed the contract a while ago and we've only just announced it and it's bad media? But he already had 1 year. He wasn't really the priority to extend past this season when you don't know if he's good enough. So, and then you have Dickey, who's been injured this season, and you've got Rob Atkinson, who I love Rob Atkinson, but he's also relatively injury prone. There is a case that actually you're not as well stocked at centre half as that 5.
No, I agree. It's numbers, but it's the critical. The only one that you could say is guaranteed fitness on what we've seen so far is Ealer, because the other ones are only in quantity. We then look at the clutch of, I'll call it number 10s or what have you.
Look at the midfield. The midfield point. You've got Knight and you've got Randall. I think you need 2 more there because Williams. It's a no.
He's out the door. He's out the door. He'll probably. What will be the point of bringing Williams in to have a few minutes the remainder of this season? And Hodgson said he was on the bench yesterday, but they decided to leave it another week. So Williams is going to be. I bet you Williams will get 20 minutes next weekend against Norwich, right?
And Jason might not be here next season as well, so we might need 3 centre midfielders. That's the problem.
Yeah, who might not be here next season?
Knight. I mean, if Knight does not.
No, but I've already parked Knight at right back. We're trying to.
No, but I mean, he'll be out the door. He might not be here.
But his little brother's going to be here, so it might pay to try and make him stay or whatever. But I think we need, at the moment, Bird and Randall, yes, +1. Definitely, that's a quality player. But then we've got Sykes is out the door. We then got Twine, Horvat, and I'm going to throw him in the equation, Stokes. You've got 3 players in that, I don't know what position you want to call it, but in that creative false 9, number 10. And am I right with that assumption that those 3 are competing for 1 position or 2?
I mean, again, a lot of this rolls back to why you need the head coach in, why you need the sporting director in, because you don't know what you're actually going to be playing as you run through it. I see Jason Knight as central midfielder, by the way. I get why he's done the right back, but I still think he's better at central midfield. We're also missing Hirakawa, who I'm not a huge fan of, but he comes back into our numbers, obviously. So
he did nothing in his minutes that he had, did he?
Oh, look, I would move Hirakawa on. I'm not a fan of Hirakawa. Stokes I've liked when I've seen, and I've seen him for Stockport. And when again we go through this 25-man squad, you do need to supplement with who are the younger players who will be part of that 25-man squad. I think you want 2 players for every position. So if you're playing 2 central midfielders, you need 4 central midfielders worthy of the name. If you are talking there is that 1 player or 2 players playing behind the front man, you need 4 players worthy of the name there. And I think Twine, Horvat, Stokes gives you 3 of those 4 straight away. If you're asking me, though, if I go through where all the gaps are in the side, and I'm working on assumption McCrory's going, I'm working on assumption that Sykes is going, it's no coincidence, though, again, to Dave's point, that Sykes has looked so much better when he's got somebody behind him who's a right back worthy of the name. It's a shocker. That actually, players have relationships build. We're too quick to judge players if they don't have other players around them. Reese's drop-off came after he lost Mehmeti in a lot of ways because he got the link up there. You've got to work in link ups. My priority positions are a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to keep VTech, but we ain't keeping VTech. At least 1 and potentially 2 strikers. And I am probably looking at, say, the right back area, because I don't think Jason Knight goes there, and a central midfielder. Those are my 4 above all else. Do I think we need more than 4? Yeah. But this is a game where, and this is where he points about Tanner.
So those 4 then, and picking up on your point, those 4 then have got to be quality players, better than what we've got. You could talk about that's a £15 million spending budget or loans, it's a 6 or 7 million playing budget and loans, or if we're not going down the loan route, it's 15 million quid, which is a number that fans, I've seen it crop up on a few threads, is what we need to spend next season. And it could be that if you say the Semenyo money, the way Alex Scott's playing at the moment, and we'll talk about Bournemouth in a second, but the way he's playing, we might get another 10 million quid windfall if he goes for 50 million or 60 million. Dave.
That has to be in addition to the pot, rather than Steve Lansdown has to put his money where his mouth is, put the money in there. If we get 10 million Alex Scott sell on, that's not 10 million to fund our rebuild. That's 10 million extra. We need to actually say, right, we're going to go in and have goes, because obviously you ain't attracting a good sporting director, you ain't attracting a good head coach, and we'll be sat here.
That's right. Yeah, Dave, your point. What were you going to make?
If you were to go as an example as 4-2-3-1 as a basis for next season, you could be talking as your main 5 having Randall and Knight, and then a front 3 of Bird, Twine, and Horvat. That's a decent starting position, but what does it lack? It lacks pace. So you need your right back and your left back to be seriously dynamic, which will create real difficulties in opponents. You need complements to Reece. Again, a goal scorer with pace, that costs money. That's a minimum. You would have Stokes as your 4th guy in the attacking positions, and you need midfielders. And that's the point about the fullbacks. The fullbacks aren't cheap. They're not just fill-ins. They show and they really contribute. And without them, you have difficulties no matter what you do. We have a really strong core, but my goodness, they're going to have to invest. And I would say we need 7 to 10 players. 2 right backs, a left back, a centre midfielder, an attacking player and a striker as an absolute minimum, probably a second one. And there are others. Because when you look at that side, where's the pace right now? It's missing.
No,
we don't have it.
There isn't. Picking up on what was it the Real Bennett has said, we only get profit on 25 million plus. I think Scott could well go for 50 million. So it's not 10 million, it's 5, but it's still a decent. Excuse me, it's still a decent number. Let's talk about sporting director. I mean, the imminent is a word that obviously was misplaced when it was used about 3 weeks ago. That was you, was it?
That was
We wanted it to happen before the Norwich game, ideally. There's names being bandied around, and the Arsenal guy. I looked at his profile on LinkedIn. He was only sporting director or technical director, I think, for a year before they had a clear Arsenal in the last 6 months. But he's got a decent track record, very, very recruitment focused. And my worry about having a recruitment focused sporting director, and this is probably why if Rob Newman comes, it would be as recruitment under a sporting director. But recruitment, they're shopping in bloody Ocado, and unless there's a big step change, we're shopping in the food bank. So how does that? It's like me. I like to think that I recruit jobs at 150 grand, which I do occasionally. Yeah, but it's like sending me out to recruit an apprentice. It's a totally different bloody ball game.
I mean, again, this is where the level of investment becomes key. On the guy from Arsenal, I think it's Ellis, isn't it? I read his LinkedIn as well, and one people would say he's clearly several notches up on the previous incumbent as he can spell technical director, and did so several times on his LinkedIn. It's a really interesting CV which goes across coaching, it goes across recruitment, goes across scouting. I think he's quite a well-rounded piece, and I don't know enough about the back world of it to say, right, actually, he's a really good candidate. But if you looked at that on paper, he looks good. There was a little bit around it here about leaving prejudice at the door, because people's natural instinct here for the sporting director will be, I want a football person, and that means typically someone that's played, someone that's managed, someone that they know. They'll want that person in there because actually it gives a name, gives the cash. Or do you want someone who knows how a football club potentially works? This guy is in the second scenario there. And the reason it's important to look beyond all that is twofold. Number one is Rob Newman is a failed manager. He failed at I think Southend and Cambridge and various places. Doesn't mean he's not very, very good at recruitment, as we've seen. Now, the other thing is it's the Liam Manning paradox. When we have someone who's not played football or worked in football, as you've seen with, has worked football, but not had the playing career, as you've seen with Will Still, Ed Still, all these various people that have come through and been manual coaches. There's a natural instinct as football fans to say they're not as good. This guy has a really good CV. This guy looks to be a good candidate, with the caveat that, again, none of us know exactly what they're looking for, but if they are going down the route of not someone who has played football, but someone who knows how football works, looks great. And it's not just he's worked in Arsenal. If you go through the CV, there's stuff around amateur sides, university sides. There is stuff around scouting abroad is in there. A little bit of scouting for Fulham as well. Yes, it's different mechanics, but he's clearly got a knowledge of how things work. And so I think he's on paper, he looks a decent candidate.
Okay. Dave, would you say, I don't know if you've looked at his profile, but, would you say that we get a sporting director and a head coach almost as a package, or do you say the sporting director gets appointed, evaluates what we've got, then they appoint the head coach? Because it's imperative, really. You've talked about trying players out, but, Roy can pass on his views at the end of his 7-match sequence, but you almost want the two to be close together. I'm not saying on the same day, but we need to get our finger out, don't we? And maybe something will be announced this week.
I would imagine it's incoming pretty soon. I think they've kind of given you a bit of a clue with the season ticket announcement, with the dates and saying it's going to be in May and delayed until the end of the season. There are certain clues that maybe exist there. And I would imagine in the next, I would hope in the next week, if it gets past this week with no sporting director, yeah, you have issues. But I expect it to be all done with manager included in the next couple of weeks. You've also got to bear in mind, is this person already in a job or not? If they're going after a manager, for example, that's already in a job, it might take a bit of time. They might be promotion chasing, they might not be. The sporting director element takes negotiations. Why would they want to come here? If they're free, why are they already free? If they're in a job, it takes a bit of time to get out of that position. They've got a duty to their current position to see it through. There are many things in play, you know. How did we feel last season when we discovered that Manning was having conversations around the playoffs? Not great. It's the same for other clubs. If we're really getting best in class, these things take time, but the clock is truly ticking because it takes you back to what Ant said with Mike LaBelle. Who made that decision? How do we know that's the centre back that the next guy in the building wants? Is that what's best for the football club or not? Because the next person comes in will set the whole agenda. The manager that comes in will decide how we play. We're speaking about a back four. He might come in and say, actually, no, I'm a back three guy. We don't know right now. And it's the 12th of April. The clock ticks fast.
No, absolutely right. All right, let's talk about a few things. I'll stick with you, Dave. Did you see the Bournemouth or Arsenal Bournemouth game? Have you seen Alex Scott's goal?
I saw the highlights. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you think Scott, if he has a late run between now and the end of the season, force himself into the World Cup squad, or do you think he's just come too early for him?
I mean, I would like to think with the England squad that anybody that goes on a run of form from now to the end of the season could be that, you know, that dark horse that comes in at the end. And if we're flicking it to England, yeah, it's promising to see. My suspicion is it might come a little bit too late for him because the England side has a lot of options in a lot of different positions, but it's not impossible for him to make that squad. And how cool would that be, by the way, if he did?
Yeah. And too late for Scott?
Possibly because James Garner appears to have been pushed ahead of him in the most recent squad. I mean, we talked earlier on about our young players ready as soon as they come in. Alex Scott's the one player I've seen come in here who was ready as soon as he walked onto that football pitch.
Yeah.
But typically, players, you only know they're ready if you give them time. And we talked about Tommy Conway earlier. Tommy Conway became a striker at championship level because Nigel Pearson took risks and gave him time and worked on his development as they went through it. It's why Riley Towler's playing for promotion side in League One at the moment, because he was given time as he goes through it. Alex Scott, I feel like a proud dad when you go and see him. You know, you want Bournemouth to win because, or you don't still want Bournemouth to win, but you want Bournemouth to win as long as Alex Scott plays well. And it's going to be awful when he goes to somewhere like Man United or something like that, because I can't bring myself to want Man United to win. But Alex Scott, I absolutely love watching him play and thinking, you know what? We saw him here. We saw him first, and you know it's pride as a Bristol City fan to see him there, and you just hope that one day we can retain players like that and get to that next level.
Well, it could be. I mean, Guardiola, he commented on Alex Scott when we played them, and you can imagine next season Man City lining up with Alex Scott and Antoine Semenyo there. I mean, Semenyo's done a fabulous job up there for him, and I bet if you'd have said to him 3 years ago, even, you'd be up there with Haaland and all the rest of it. And what a season he's had. Steve Cottrell, Dave. I haven't seen it, but a tearful end of season interview apparently on media kept up Cheltenham, a club where he lifted them out of the league. I mean, Steve, we liked Steve Cottrell as a manager, didn't we?
Like is an understatement, I would say. Certain managers appeal because the way they talk, the way they express themselves, and in that particular interview, the way he spoke about the club, and like you said, there was so much emotion involved. Whether you're a Cheltenham fan or a fan of another club, you watch interviews like that and you get it. It speaks to the heart of what it means to be a football fan, because football clubs are part of communities. They are part of people. They are stories of our generations. And it might not mean anything to someone chasing the Premier League and booing their side off the pitch because they've lost despite being multiple points clear. But to other people, just surviving the drop down one division means everything. And when it comes from essentially one of your returning heroes, somehow it makes it that little bit more special.
Yeah. And Cottrell doesn't get the credit that he deserves in the hierarchy, because he gave this club its first championship for 60 years. Yeah. And, if you look at clips of Bristol City's, very little of Steve Cottrell, and he made the dreaded thing. He put his head above the parapet. You need to manage up better sometimes, but we started that season dreadfully. I know we had Codger, but do you think Cottrell was dealt a rough hand here in the final analysis?
Well, first things first, Terry Cooper, Wembley, 86 vibes from Cottrell. And, I don't think there's a Bristol City fan in the world who watches that Terry Cooper interview where he played for Leeds, won championship, played for England. Yeah. And he's on the pitch at Wembley and saying, this is the best moment of my life. And I'm going to use the platform to repeat my call for Terry Cooper to be honoured at Ashton Gate, because it's well past the time it was due. In terms of Cottrell, was he got a rough hand? Yes and no. And the reason I say yes and no is there's a lot made of the Andre Gray, Harry Maguire piece. We got Codger because we didn't get Andre Gray. None of this says that we shouldn't have done the interference once the deals were done. Okay. So you're really saying, right, actually, you replaced Gray with Codger. Actually, you've probably got arguably a better striker there. So it ended up right in the end. I think we ended up, instead of Maguire getting Nathan Baker and Liam Moore on loan, if I remember right, last season. So actually, although there's a bit that said you didn't have Maguire and you didn't have Gray, you did have Baker, Moore and Codger. So it's not as simplistic as the fact saying we did these two deals and then he had the rug pulled out from underneath him. He did have the rug pulled out from underneath him, but there were more than adequate replacements of it. What I got from that season, when we went up to the season back in Championship, it was the margins. I thought that we were attacking really well. I thought we were always in a game, but I thought the bit we struggled with, we always looked like we could concede a goal quite easily. And we had a lot of possession. We looked really, really good in games. Do I think it was harsh to get rid of him? Yeah. I think he deserved far, far more time and far, far more respect than he was given. And it was noticeable that after he went, again, here's a pattern emerging, we opened the purse strings to make a few signings.
And Dave, at that time that he went, there was the snake oil salesman was already in the building, and Mr. Ashton was starting to get his sticky fingers all over it. And has alluded to the fact that the purse strings started to be unleashed. Are we in the realms of that now? That this is, as a number of people have said on social media platforms, this is Lansdown's last throw of the dice, and you might actually think, well, I will push the boat out a bit. God knows what happens if it fails, mine. But what do you think?
He has to. He really doesn't have a choice. He's put himself in this hole. That all eyes are on him. He has evidence, he has a back data of this. We've seen it twice, at least in recent history, where he fires a guy and the next guy in the building gets the money the other guy really could have done with getting. And they're making this whole change, essentially. You think about what happened in January, the interview and everything that we've done so many times. You think about the reaction to it. It's led us down this route of all of a sudden changing the whole way the football club runs. He's going to give money to it, because after coming out and doing this, if you don't give money to it, nothing changes. You can move all the chess pieces around, because at the moment, all we know is it's going to be all this plus Brian. No, it's going to be the great reset plus money thrown at it. Yeah. We just have to hope they get the right people in play to spend the money wisely.
I think Ellie Jones, one of our contributors, she put a great little post on X where she said he's asking us to invest in the club in terms of season tickets. And I have to say that if you took the average income of a Bristol City supporter, their percentage of income invested in the club, whilst much smaller, is probably in line with Lansdowne's. But she said, you invest in the team and we'll invest in season tickets. I thought that was a good problem. Final point today, it's a chance for all our yesterdays. It is the Football League final. LDV, Freight Rover, call it what you will these days, at Wembley. I don't know if it's on TV anywhere this afternoon, but it's against... it's Luton Town versus Stockport. In the Stockport team, Josh Stokes, if he's selected, if he's got over that niggling foot injury he can't get over. But on the squad, probably starting all three of them. a team managed by Jack Wilshere, who Ewan didn't like my suggestion to him coming in as a coach, even though he's got a 47% win rate in
I
league.
said jury's out because Luton operate in Division 1 or League 1 with parachute payments still. And that's why they're able to get players like the lesser spotted Casey Palmer at that level.
I forgot he's there as well, isn't he?
Well, look, they've got Casey Palmer, they've got Ali Al-Hamidi. You know, you think about all these players we've had or been linked to over the years. I know you're probably going to say Naismith.
Well, Naismith, Walsh, and Wells are all going to feature today, aren't they? So if you throw in,
I think George Saville plays for them as well.
George Saville as well.
So there's a lot of interest in Luton. I mean, I wasn't poo-pooing Jack Wilshere. And what I was saying with Ellis, possibly from Arsenal, actually it makes a lot of sense if Wilshere may be a candidate for head coach. That's something for another day. What I am saying is that actually, if you have a parachute payment club in League One, and which Luton are, with a lot of good players in there, and they're outside of the playoff race, then there are obvious questions to be answered. The other aspect about Luton is if they win the trophy, they are going to be a quiz question for years and years to come, because they're the only team that would have won a trophy at Wembley having been already knocked out of the competition. How? Swindon beat them.
Yeah.
Swindon beat them at Kenilworth Road. I think it was in the quarterfinals. And what happened was, I can't recall who Swindon's manager is. He's some kind of annoying bastard. But anyway, he'd done his team sheet, and the officials had a different team sheet. So Mr. Holloway brought on a sub who wasn't named on the official team sheet, and therefore, despite winning the game 1-0, Swindon had to forfeit the game. It was also a case of that Swindon, they had Ollie Clark, who used to play for Rovers, playing for them. He was also banned at the time, and he was banned, I believe, for 8 games for grabbing an opponent's genitalia. But Holloway still played him as well. So Luton actually lost the game and reinstated to the tournament.
Yeah. Dave, it's interesting. I've forgotten the connection there. How would you feel if in 10 days' time, and whenever the sporting directors announce, we may well do a special, I'm sure we will. But how would you feel if it was that guy from Arsenal, Ellis, who we talked about and delved into him a bit more than I had, and it was Jack Wilshere as head coach, and they brought in Rob Newman as recruitment director? So if in 10 days' time we had that little trio, Arsenal, bloke, Wilshere, and Rob Newman, what would you say about that?
I would say it's a plan. Get a move on.
I think that's good. Talking about getting a move on, just to wrap up, Dave and I follow quite avidly in different ways. I have got tickets for their final home game of the season, but when I saw the cost of bloody EasyJet flights out of Malaga, it's bank holiday weekend, it's 400 quid. And that's without even selecting your seat. But Dave, Malaga could even get auto promotion from Segunda in Spain, couldn't they? They won 2-0.
It was a big game yesterday. You know, if they lost yesterday, they would have outside the playoffs. Next week they're playing Almeria, which is second against third, and Malaga in the top division again. It is where they should be. You know,
and that last home game of the season. So if anybody fancy, I've got 2 tickets for Malaga versus Santander, the weekend of May, bank holiday. I actually said to Melanie, I said, maybe it might be worth going on the flights, but Malaga Santander, the penultimate game of the Spanish season, could even decide the title, couldn't it?
No, exactly. And for Malaga fans, they have been through hell in the last few years. They went down to the 3rd division, essentially. They've come back up again. And going to Malaga is one of those clubs that when you are essentially English or a giddy, shall we say, they're a very international club. They have English fan bases. You know,
they got an English ultras corner there, and what they know now,
exactly. The colours of the city are essentially purple and almost lime. There's a lot of connections there. You know, a lot of English people go to Malaga and have it as their second club, essentially. And for me, Malaga, the city, is a very important part of my life, and it is a football club that I like to see doing well.
Yeah, no, I support them. But there we go. Guys, thanks for your contribution today. And Dave will be doing the Norwich review at 9 o'clock next Sunday morning. But in the meantime, Have a good week, everybody. Hope you've enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed doing it. But in the meantime, goodbye.